All right, welcome everyone to the very first episode of the Inside Track podcast. My name is Ben Kudla, your host. I work for the Equibase company. Started walking hots when I was 14 and have 12 years of experience in the racing industry. I'm joined by my guest, the CEO and co-founder of Pramana Labs, which is a natural language AI company that produces stat lines for each and every race across every track in North America. You can find all those stat lines at equibase.com. Corey has 20 years of horse racing knowledge and brings a stats-focused approach to the podcast. You've probably seen him on previous Equibase podcasts before with Christina Blacker, Scott Coles, Dad Torgman. And so we're just going to handicap today 3 stakes races, and that's kind of what this is. It's just a weekly handicapping contest going over the feature races of the week and just a fun discussion on who we like and what we want to play. So today we'll be going over the Grade 3 Kelso Stakes, the Grade 1 Diana Stakes, and the Grade 3 Sanford Stakes, all this Saturday at Saratoga. So let's start with the Grade 3 Kelso Stakes. We got a mile on the inner turf for 4-year-olds and up with a $175K purse. Who do you like here, Corey?
Ben, first of all, I'm excited to be here on the podcast with you. Yes, we've done a few of these in the past with Christina and Dan and Scott and those guys, but excited to talk about opening weekend at Saratoga with you. And when we start with the Kelso, I think this was an interesting race to me, but honestly, sometimes when you look at a race and you start breaking it down, you start to say, okay, I see a horse that's peaking here and it's just no way to get around it. And that horse to me is Mysterious Night. I love the fact that, if Buick can't be there for Charlie Appleby, Flavien Prat is amazing. Together, they're 4 of 5 all time with only 1/3. So 80% together is, how do you get around that, right? I mean, that's Prat wins everywhere he goes. Appleby wins everywhere he goes. And this horse looked, if you watch the race, the last race, I thought it was a tremendous race for that horse in the poker, finishing second last time at Saratoga on June 8th. If you watch it, he gets boxed inside, and he was kind of inside behind a slow pace setter the entire way. And that pace setter went on to win the whole race. But what really got my attention when I went back and watched it was how he was kind of boxed in. And we'll get to the stretch race here, as I think you're bringing it up right now on camera. But he gets kind of boxed in coming around that far turn. And I think it's a really significant move. So I'll let it go. I think it's play.
Yeah, let's go ahead and share this. Ended up being a huge prep race for this with 3 of the entries in here.
Yeah.
Casa Creed outside of them, and then Kubrick there at the top of the stretch. And it is Talk of the Nation up to get a narrow lead. Carl Spackler inside.
Watch how Carl Spackler
has 4 to make up, and a tough Ice Chocolat is not
Mysterious Night. And watch Mysterious Night get free here. Watch, kind of gets running room, and then watch his explosion in the last few hundred yards to get second, right? Look at that stretch. He's up there for second, right? He was kind of boxed in that whole time. When he finally got out late and came on for second, that was a really quick turn of foot to get up there for second.
And that really was.
And that race came off a 3.5-month layoff, a trip back from South Africa. That horse has been journeyed all over the Middle East and England and back to the States and back across to England again. And then if you see that performance and you saw the number it was put up at the end from a horse that got kind of loose on the front, I think horse had every reason to kind of need that race. I think he's set for best now, has been training at Saratoga. And I honestly think he'll sit the trip, and I just can't get around that late move, Charlie Appleby and Flavien Prat together, and the fact that he's just on the improve right now.
I totally agree with you, and obviously we don't have the morning line odds right now, but I think he'll be heavily favored with a lot of those points taken into contention by handicappers. I was really surprised that Talk of the Nation couldn't pass up Ice Chocolat at the end. I mean, I know it was like a 24-1, 48 and 4/5 seconds half, but man, he had every excuse to pass, and it kind of really takes me off that horse. What I do like from that race, Carl Spackler, it was kind of a tough stretch run there. He kind of lugged out a little bit, but it kind of reminds me a lot of that American Grade 2 at Churchill back in May of 2023. He got 8th by 4.5 lengths, then came right back and won 3 stakes in a row. So I kind of looking at this pattern where, all right, he got 5th, only by 2 3/4 lengths there in the poker, but I think he's going to come back and run a monstrous race for Chad Brown there. So that's kind of my play. So I'm going to go go with Carl Spackler over Mysterious Night, but I totally agree with everything you said about Mysterious Night.
And sometimes these short fields can produce lone leads. And I kind of looked around and, it's not really exactly 100% sure how this thing will set up. But I think I look at Carl Spackler and I just didn't see an excuse last time. I didn't. And clearly Carl Spackler, loves Saratoga, got 2 wins from 3 races there. But I just don't understand what happened in the stretch there with it just looked like he had nothing. And so it's hard for me to endorse off of that when the horse that I endorse really just showed a ton of effort and energy off of the conditions that were unfavorable for him, and then just kind of stretched home and nosed out Talk of a Nation. So I just don't see how you go anywhere else in this race for my money.
Oh, fair enough. I do want to point out one thing. Carl Spackler is the only horse in this race who ever beat Mysterious Night back in August of 2023 in the Hall of Fame, where Mysterious Night got 7th and Carl Spackler actually won that race. I know that was a while ago, but I don't know. I mean, these two are probably going to go head to head. And
I agree. And I looked at that, but there was the incident at the very beginning of the race out of the gate that caused, Mysterious Night good amount of trouble. So I'm not sure. I think with a clean trip, and again, the clean trip is always the case, right? But a clean trip, I think Mysterious Night's probably the better horse coming up to his best race.
I agree. What do you think about Northern Invader here as kind of a price play?
On numbers, you look at those numbers; those are pretty tough, right? The 112 and the 114 Equibase speed figure in the last 2 races. I honestly, Ottoman Fleet, nice horse, but still it's grade 3. I'm just not certain that horse has what it takes to compete with these. If you look at its back class, I honestly think that that's probably some money will go there because of those gaudy numbers. I honestly think Mysterious Night's a better horse, and I have to go with the class in my mind.
Fair enough. All right, well, Corey, you're going with Mysterious Night. I'm going with Carl Spackler. So that's what we got for the Grade 3 Kelso Stakes. We'll move on to the feature race of the day on Saturday, which is the Grade 1 Diana Stakes. 1 1/8 on the inner turf for fillies and mares, 4-year-old and up. It's crazy. We got, 5 Chad Brown entries in here. And Chad Brown has actually won this race 7 out of the last 8 years, which is pretty wild stat. But yeah, and last year he ran 1, 2, 3 with all his horses with White Beam winning. So obviously he has some motivation to win this race.
Ben, he's the only trainer to ever start 4 horses in the Diana Stakes. He's done it 4 times. 2016, wow. 2019. In 2022, he started 4 horses and finished 1, 2, 3, 4. And he also did it again in 2023, right? He has 5 entered this year. And just for some context of history for Brown, what hasn't Brown done? He's done it 3 times before in a Grade 1, entering 5 horses. The Just a Game 2024 just happened. The 2018 Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Turf, and the Flower Bowl in 2015. So starting multiple horses is kind of what Chad Brown does. And it figures he's won 7 of the last 8, right?
Yeah, it's true. And all his entries this race have pretty good contention. They're all wonderful, impressive horses. Honestly, for me, though, I think I'm going to go against Chad Brown, and I think you agree. We're both on Didia for a multitude of reasons. Why do you like him?
Man, Ben, I just saw this, and again, it's a deep race. I think it's a really deep race. I have to look at a couple of stats here because I'm the stats guy here with our Equibase stat line. And, Ignacio Correas and Jose Ortiz are 2 of 3, 67% together in turf route races over the last 45 days. So there's recency and connections, right? Correas owns the 3rd best turf record over the last 45 days, winning across the North America, winning 4 of 7 races, so 57% together. So horses are running well over the sod for him. And I just think when you look at this race and you look at who's coming off layoffs, who has been impressive in certain spots, I think that Didia is just ultra consistent. She won 7 of her last 10 races, finishing out of the money only once with a poor performance in the Breeders' Cup last
fall. She only got 10th by 4.5 lengths. It wasn't even like she was way dead last.
Well, you get that blanket finish sometimes happens in those turf races going long. I used to say, turf means all when you look at, multi-race plays, right? And then 10 within 4 lengths. It's kind of crazy, right? But I think it's the consistency is there. And I really keyed off of watching the last race. And I'm not sure. I think you're going to show it on the screen here.
Yeah, let me pull this up here.
Yeah, and I'll let you pull it up. But when you do, there are moments when you watch horse racing and you watch race horses finish that you say, is that horse just turn a foot eye-catching and means that they had a ton left, or is everybody else just getting tired? And in this race, this was just a magnificent performance by Didia in the stretch. So here's what happens. She broke on top, could have gone on with it, but kind of settled nicely into fifth in the rail on the first turn. The leader carved out these fractions of like 23-1, 47-3, and then Diddy is on the inside kind of scraping the paint. And then you're about to show the stretch run. But right before that, Didia comes off the rail at about the 3/4 mark. And Nisi Marie, who I know you like a little bit, forces her way inside Didia and then forcing Didia to kind of shift out. So then here's what you're about to show. They're going to come around the far turn, and Didia is going to swing into this four-path looking for clear running. And when she's asked, watch how she takes off under a vigorous hand ride and not actually ask much. And I think there was a ton more left. So I'll let you go ahead and play it, but it's really magnificent to watch.
All right, so here's a stretch run, the New York Stakes.
The interest confronted by Surprisingly as they reach the top of the stretch. Surprisingly is up to take the lead. Didia's running a huge race in the center of the course, and she runs by Surprisingly, full of run.
Yeah, look at that.
Not really ever asking, where's that whip? Nowhere to be found. Just
nowhere.
Shaking the horse up and putting the rest of the field to bed.
And honestly, had so much horse left at the end. I agree.
Just so much. And you watch the gallop out, just keeps galloping out. It was so impressive to watch that you just think about, okay, what if that horse takes another step forward today? It wasn't a super clean trip. It wasn't like, you know, she had everything her own way. And yet still, in the end, when asked, just responded. So I like that horse a lot. The morning lines, probably 7-2, I think, is the morning line that just came out. And so, you know, okay. 7-2, I'll be fine with that performance, a repeat of that.
Yeah, 100% agree. I like that horse a lot. And I think another thing to put into contention there is the horse who got third, Warlike Goddess, last weekend. She just won that, was it the Grade 3 Robert Dick Memorial Stakes at Delaware?
Correct.
You know, so I mean, and then you got Nisi Marie in here, Nisi Marie as well, which I think this New York Stakes is going to end up being a great prep race, honestly, more so than the Just a Game, which had all the Chad Browns in it. And again, here we are today. But yeah, so we're both on Didia. Like it.
Who do you like underneath, Ben?
I'm going to go with Nisi Marie, exactly underneath, in that New York Stakes. It's an interesting little mare, or filly, excuse me. So, third start off that 6-month layoff before the Begay Stakes. She's got improving speed figures. I think she'll be honestly overlooked compared to these Chad Browns. So I'm hoping for a nice price, maybe 5-6 to 1.
You got 12 to 1 on the morning line with Nisi Marie.
Look at that. Perfect.
Yeah. Now, look, I see what you saw, and I saw Nisi Marie have a really strange trip in that race in the New York. So I do see where you saw that there's definitely improvement potential with that horse. Here's a little stat line for you that's kind of interesting. Trainer Robert Reed has never won a turf route race at Saratoga. 0 for 28. Okay, so that's a little tough, right? That streak dates back to 1994 with only 2 seconds and 2/3 and running out 24 times. So just based on historical precedent, it's kind of hard with me being a stats guy to endorse that horse. So, and with only those 2 seconds, 2/3, I can't get too excited underneath for Nisi Marie. But I do see some of your angles. For me, I had this interesting mixed feeling on a couple of horses, but I'm going to jump in with one that I think is just, for me, sitting on something here where, when horse players jump off a horse because there's trouble, and some horses find their own trouble, and others just, you're like, how did I miss that? Coppice. I mean, that horse to me Coppice was the favorite in the last 2 races. Okay. He's now 8 to 1 in the morning. She's not an 8 to 1 on the morning line in this race, right? So go from the favorite in those 2 races to 8 to 1 on the morning line. In the Churchill Distaff on Derby Day, Coppice broke dead last, found a ton of trouble in the lane, took off when clear, kind of only to get tagged by Chili Flag on the outside at the wire, right? Then got overbet off that troubled trip in the Just a Game, kind of hit the outside of the gate at the break. Ended up last, couldn't find that clean hole to run through in the lane, and just taken up slightly, and just not much there in the end, right? But I did some stat looking at, and I said, okay, because when Chad Brown has a beaten favorite, He wins at 35% over the last 5 years with a beaten favorite that finished second or third in its previous race, and 53% of the time in the exacta. Okay, so over half the time with a beaten favorite that finished second or third in that race, 53%. So I like that angle. I think that's something to look at in here. We just have not seen a clean break yet from this horse in the last 2 races, and you might get some value at 8-1. And if this horse gets a clean break, there's a reason it was bet down to favoritism, and Chad Brown decides to bring her back in this race. So I look at that as the value to me underneath.
Okay. I love it. I love it. What do you think about Chili Flag? Honestly, it was probably going to be the favorite, coming off. Done nothing wrong. Three wins in a row, graded stakes. I mean, it's hard not to like this horse. We'll see what is the morning line for Chili Flag.
92 on the for Chili Flag.
Wow.
And so it's hard not to like. Give me your case for how Chili Flag gets it done in this race, Ben.
I think it's probably going to need a hot pace, which you might get. We'll see, though. And he's just going to come fly, or she's just going to come flying in the end. I think she's got a lot to go. She's in her prime, which is kind of rare for a 5-year-old mare.
Yeah.
A lot of them, sometimes will just stop running, but the case I don't like, she went a little bit low on the number. I was surprised she only got a 97 in that just a game. Same with Coppice, only getting a 94. Just kind of interesting, but I think she's going to need a hot pace. Maybe Evie Jets will go out, maybe not. I'm not too sure. But she does like this turf course at Saratoga, 100% in the exacta. So that's hard to hate, and she's in her prime. So at 9-2, I'll definitely take that. I'll be honest.
Yeah, I honestly just think that Didia is going to get the jump, and I think that Didia will have the jump in the lane. I think that Chili Flag will come running, and to your point, that last race in that just a game, I mean, she was throwing it out there in the lane, and just closing speed was insane. So if she's got that kind of closing speed, perhaps she can kind of get there. But she's a one-run mare. And I think that her last 3 have been good enough to get there. I mean, neck, half, not winning by a lot, right? Just doing just enough to get there. And I think there's enough class in here, and especially race shape, that I think that Didia will get the jump and hopefully has enough to hold off Chili Flag's late run. She hasn't done anything wrong. That 97 is not eye-catching, but you got to do only what you need to do to win the race.
And notable mention, actually, Didia did beat her back in January at Gulfstream. So it's another thing to note.
Seems like a different mare since that race, though.
Yeah, for real. I mean, you just turn on the gears. But let's go ahead and watch that stretch run in the.
Yeah, do it.
All right.
And you'll also see in this one a couple other horses that are in here with White Beam and Mission of Joy as well.
Yeah, White Beam, your last year's Diana winner.
Yeah, I got some thoughts on White Beam too.
White Beam poised in second. Good to Cachet rides the rail in third. Gina Romantica in the clear. Coppice between those two. Mission of Joy and Chili Flag. They're covered by 6 lengths with a quarter of a mile to go. They went 48-3 for the half, 112 and
112. No excuses.
Jets and White Beam have been 1-2. White Beam sticks her gray head in front inside the final 1/8 of a mile. Gina Romantica.
Look at that turn of foot.
I mean, it's just eating up the side. Look at that.
Oh, every stride is advancing like half a length.
Chili Flag, an enormous day for a rat or two.
Just showed the stick.
Has won the Jet.
I mean, that's so impressive to watch. I just don't. I look at White Beam. Okay, so let's talk about White Beam there. Horse that finished second in there. I didn't see an excuse. I saw no excuse. That was last year's Diana winner. I saw nothing there that should indicate that there was trouble, that we should see a turnaround, that there should be something different. I do not like that White Beam, since that 113 in the Diana last year, has had 4 consecutive descending Equibase speed figures. That's not a trend that I like to see when I look at horses and how you handicap, especially classy mares, right? So I don't like that. Also, it's finished behind fellow Diana starters Chili Flag, Nisi Marie, Fluffy Socks, Gina Romantica, and Evie Jets in her last 5 starts. So that's not a great trend either when you look at how she stacks up in this race. So I'm off White Beam completely.
Yeah, I agree. I think she'll be up there, but I don't see her winning on Saturday. What's her morning line?
4-1.
4-1. Wow. I'm actually surprised at that.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, Chad Brown and Flavien Prat.
Yeah.
Those connections are tough, right? And I just didn't see an excuse. And sometimes that's just the way it is. But I probably just put her in the winner circle by saying all this, but I don't see it. How do you feel? What do you feel about Moira?
Really interesting horse. I think this will be a night. I'm surprised actually she's going into a grade 1 after that long of a layoff since that Breeders' Cup race at Santa Anita. Interesting horse. I think she'll need a race or two coming off that layoff to really win. But I think this will be a good, not learning experience, but kind of getting back in the grind of things. But again, I mean, look at her numbers. I mean,
yeah,
it's hard not to like that. And she's been working out really well. Maybe not on July 6th, but that bullet there on the 24th, reason 5 furlongs at 59 4/5. So I don't see her winning, but I see her kind of mid-pack 4th through 5th.
Look, I looked at that 120, and that's eye-catching. It's the first horse you see. When you start to handicap and you look down, the very first horse and the first number you see is that 120 Equibase speed figure, which kind of just jumps out at you. But you mentioned the layoff, and I went back and I looked at the Diana history about layoffs, and that on Saturday she's going to be off a 252-day layoff. And ironically, that would tie the Diana Stakes record set by sister Charlie in 2019, who also went for the Breeders' Cup, Filly, and Mare Turf straight to the Diana Stakes in the exact same number of days layoff to win. So there is some precedent for it being done, but that's an awful long layoff. I looked at it. That 120, that career best in the Breeders' Cup, Filly, and Mare, Kevin Attard, he does win at 20% with horses in their next start off a career best Equibase speed figure. So can get it done in a repeated fashion. That happens before. But he doesn't start a lot of horses at Saratoga. Only 4 in his training career at the Spa. And he's won one of them at the 2020 Boston Spa with Starship Jubilee. But that's not a ton of horses, so there's not a lot of track record of getting them ready and sending them off at in upstate New York. But there we go. With that said, I think you're right. 5-1 morning line has numbers to win, numbers that places her there. I think there's others that give me a better feeling.
Yeah, I agree. Well, we both agree on Didia, and let's just kind of hit this late double. So who do you got in this Sanford? We got this grade 3 here for some youngins, the 2-year-olds going 6 furlongs on the dirt. It's kind of hard to pass up that Mo Plex that you love so much, winning by 10 lengths in that main special. Although it was a state main special, I just want to throw that out there.
I honestly just like the way the horse did it. And I guess I get it. You have a state bred versus open and completely different class category, if you will. But I thought that the way that horse ran from the outside, broke from the outside with sometimes 2-year-olds, with inexperience can kind of veer directly right, take that right lane. And did not, and actually looked professional, breaking on the outside, wiring the entire field without really being asked, opening up just without being asked into the lane, and just winning with a ton left. To me, it was really eye-catching. It was impressive, right? And that extra half a furlong ran on like it shouldn't matter. And honestly, the breeding, it shouldn't matter whatsoever. Right. And, Englehart's 1 for 3 all-time at Saratoga with 2-year-olds going this distance on dirt and stakes races. So done it before. And I really think getting that same outside post should just do nothing but help the horse, who will look at recency and say, oh, I know what I'm doing here. I don't have to manage traffic trouble. I'm not going to get, shut off. I'm not going to get closed off inside. I don't have to find, racing room with dirt in my face. I can kind of make my own race. And so I feel like he's probably got the best shot from the outside to just kind of run the same race and then open up in the lane when asked. And I think that's the one that I'm looking at, and at 6-1 on the morning line right now, I am shocked. But yeah, because the 6-5 horse that everybody's taking money on, the morning line has, is that full brother to Fierceness on the rail, Mentee. Okay, yeah. And I think it's only because of the full brother. And yes, won at first asking, opened up in the lane, but got really tired and almost got tagged at the wire. If you watch that race, right? And in that race, He was the 1A, so he was the other part of the entry, but got to break from that outside post, from the far outside. And so exactly had no adversity, had nothing, no dirt in his face, got to open up at will, looped around everybody and found the rail. On Saturday, he's going to have to break from the 1 hole. And you're going to have to figure out how to deal with horses coming down, whether maybe you can get a perfect break, but without the perfect break might get shut off. I think might have to think about traffic trouble. And for these 2-year-olds, they're really just learning and they're super green. And so, that horse slowing down at 5.5 furlongs doesn't really portend a lot for that extra half a furlong plus traffic trouble. I think the horse on the outside's got a better chance of just running the same trip, running the same result.
Yeah, it's going to be a hot pace. I mean, I think it might be so many people or so many horses going out to that lead, including your Moplex.
Yeah.
And yeah, they're just 2-year-olds. I mean, it takes experience sometimes. When a lot of these had a perfect little trip in their first races, and then now you're going into this contention with horses that are all class. Which is why I'm kind of going with the 6 Studley Do Right. The lone Maryland bred in the race. But I love it. Working out at Laurel, I love it. Shipping into the big dogs at Saratoga, but you know what? He won at Saratoga last time out, 1 for 1.
If you look at how he did it.
After a bobble start, a tough break, and he didn't need the lead. I mean, he can come from off the pace, and
he was 5th by 11 at the second point of call.
Yeah. You just turned it on, and his late pace rating is on RaceLens is 105.5, which is the first, ranked first in the whole race. And I think just that experience, the fact he likes Saratoga, he doesn't need the lead. I'm all in on him, so that's who I'm picking for the Sanford.
Hey, I'll take that into consideration. If I can get 6-1 on the outside and 7-2 with Studley Do Right, I'll toss Mentee a bit. I think I'll toss the chalk, and then those 2 are definitely how I would play this race. One will come running late. One should hopefully have the lead in the lane.
Sounds good. Well, so I guess you'd put Didia. Who would you put for your late double?
Didia to Moplex.
Okay.
Didia to Moplex. I'll take both of those and just straight up cold double that.
All right, I'll do cold double Didia, Studley Do Right. So I'm looking forward to watching these races Saturday and big opening day tomorrow. It's gonna be fantastic. Wish I was up there, but
love to be there. But we'll have to go do this show on the road live up there one of these days. So Ben, it's been fun.
It's been great. Thank you so much, Corey, and thank you everyone for joining for the very first episode of the Inside Track podcast. These will be released every Wednesday or Thursday, depending on when entries come out. So be sure to hit that subscribe button on YouTube and enjoy the rest of your day. And thank you so much, everybody.